A warm welcome to today's webinar. In our recent webinar held on 15th April, we received overwhelming response. There was 800 plus registrations and attendees attended this last webinar conducted on 15th April, which was mostly covered almost all the e-invoicing regulation, um, the framework, the approach that need to be taken from compliance perspective. That was our topic in last webinar. But today's webinar, what we thought, we received a lot of queries during the last session, and we thought of consolidating all these relevant queries for e-invoicing and provide a Q&A session, which is not live, but I am trying to consolidate all the relevant questions that with the answers, the respective answers to provide clarity on e-invoicing. Some housekeeping rules you can during the webinar you can focus as during the webinar everyone will be by default muted. However, you can post your queries on the Q&A session. If time permits, we will look into it. Otherwise, like we did last time, we consolidate all your queries. We try to reach out each participants by email by responding to those queries. So that's how we have designed this webinar as well. Towards the end of the session, you can see a QR code. That QR code will direct you to a link. You can post your queries there as well. And if you wish to reach any one of us, you can have our own details in the respective slides. So that will be another way of approaching us during the session. So as I said, we have conducted a webinar on 15th April with respect to e-invoicing, covering all the aspects of e-invoicing requirements, which is a new mandatory requirement in UAE. You can see these thumbnails and also YouTube link if you wish to refer this link YouTube podcast, that will be helpful. But as I said, today's sessions, we will be only focusing on the relevant questions that we received during the last session. So the first questions, oh, sorry, before that, I wanted to introduce our speakers. Myself, Deepak Waryam, I would be walking you or discussing these Q&A with respect to invoicing. I'm a director in indirect tax practice at Crowe. Beneath is our partner, senior partner in tax and technology. He would be discussing the topic of AI-powered financial reporting, along with my colleague Hamza Soldi. He's also director in AI financial intelligence reporting, and both will be covering this AI-powered financial reporting section in today's webinar. Lastly, Umesh, he's my colleague, senior manager, indirect tax practice at Crowe. He will be covering the VAT regulatory updates. Coming back to the questions, I have consolidated or tried to capture 25 odd questions from the recent webinar that we conducted. I'm trying to explain as easy as possible, but let's go through each questions in detail. How do I obtain, apply, or PEPAL ID and UUID? PEPAL ID, as you know, it's without PEPAL ID, nobody can issue an electronic invoice. So it is very important that every businesses need a PEPAL ID. PEPAL ID will be created by the appointed ASPs. It's not your responsibility to generate PEPAL ID because it has to be linked with the PEPAL framework. Every businesses in UAE will have a PEPAL ID, which is a combination of country code 0235 represents UAE, along with the 10 digits of your TRN or the TIN number allocated to your business. Similarly, UUID is another unique identifier which will be used for electronic invoicing purpose. Again, it's not a business requirement that you need to have UUID for each invoice, or it's not for commercial purpose. It is for system integration purpose. And UUID generated by ASPs will be something business applies for separately. It will be used for tracking, and normal commercial invoice number will be always there. But however, there could be duplications happens or multiple entities use various series of invoice numbers. But UUID, which stands for a unique identifier globally, that will be helpful for e-invoicing implementation perspective. The second question, how to become an ASP? Is it possible for an individual or a company to become an ASP in general? or any qualification or courses are available to become an ASP? Straightforward answer, no, you cannot be an ASP as a freelancer or an individual person. A company can be an ASP, but you need to satisfy certain criteria defined by Ministry of Finance and the Federal Tax Authority in UAE. And they have also released a detailed guidelines with respect to consideration to choose an ASP. So the first and foremost, to become an ASP, you need to have a PEPAL certification. PEPAL is a Pan-European Public Procurement Online platform. It's an association, and it's an international association. They will issue this PEPAL certifications. As long as you have this PEPAL certification, then the rest of the criteria is applicable from UAE perspective. You need to have at least certain minimum experience in other countries, having invoicing implementation experience. And you need to have presence in UAE, you need to have an establishment in UAE, minimum capital requirement. All this will be criteria to become an ASP. So in short, a normal individual cannot be an ASP, or a company can be an ASP subject to these conditions, satisfactory meeting these conditions. If a business appoints an ASP, what should it expect from the ASP? Obviously, if you cannot generate your invoice without an ASP's involvement. ASP is responsible for integrating your systems. Even if it's not core system integrations, there are various methods to integrate your systems for invoicing purpose. But first and foremost, is ASP's role is integrating or talking your systems between your ERP systems and their ERP system. And the data dictionary, whatever mandatory data fields suggested by Ministry of Finance for e-invoicing in UAE, those data fields requirements to be captured in your invoice data, and that need to be validated by these appointed ASPs. So ASP, there is a misunderstanding that once you appoint an ASP, they will take care of everything. But their role is in e-invoicing is just to validate these data fields, receiving your invoice data and converting the data into an XML format, submit to the Federal Tax Authority as well as the buyer's appointed ASP. Apart from that, the ASPs will not provide any other support with respect to invoicings. They will also do an additional support, which is called the MLS status. Every time the invoice details passes from one party to other party, there should be a message level status, which is also called acknowledgement status. This informations need to be given to each parties upon each stage. Further, they will also provide a platform access where you can see the current status of your invoices. Reporting functions are there. There are reconciliations methodology or window that you can see what sort of reconciliations can be done using this ASP's platform. The fourth question is, if an invoice has successfully passed through corner 2 and corner 3, I am assuming that everyone joined in this call understand the PEPAL framework, where 5 parties, corner 1 to corner 5 are involved in UAE in invoicing framework. So this question is related to an invoice successfully passed through corner 2 and corner 3, meaning it was validated by the supplier's ASP, which is corner 2, and forwarded to FTA, also corner 5. But the invoice is later objected or rejected by the customer at corner 4 for commercial reasons. How should this be handled? And should a credit note be issued once corner 1 is notified of this rejection? Just to understand, in the invoicing framework, a customer cannot actually reject an invoice, electronic invoice. They can delay the payment, or they can say to the supplier that there is the invoice category you have mentioned is incorrect. We request you to issue a correct invoice. This can be communicated to the suppliers, but rejections cannot be happened through system. So if that is the case, then the only option is the supplier need to issue an electronic credit note. The number of credit notes definitely is going to increase in the initial period, especially during the first 6 months of the implementations, because of these in confusions, and then various errors can be project like expected when invoicing comes into place. So the only option for this in this case is to issue an electronic credit note from the supplier side to correct the errors. So the next question, once corner 3, which is customers appointed ASP, transmit the invoice with corner 4, which is customer, does corner 1 still need to upload the invoice into customers' own portal? So there are various vendor portals available in UAE, especially when it comes to RFP submissions or tender submissions. You have to submit your invoice through these portals, third-party portals. The answer is to this question is no. Once the e-invoice has been shared with your customer via this network, ASP's network, the supplier does not need to upload any invoice to the customer's own portal, but you can still follow this process for commercial reasons. For to become a valid electronic invoice, you will have to use this electronic e-invoicing framework rather than using this vendor's portal. The uploaded port invoice will be there in the vendor's portal as a supporting documents. If a company is not VAT registered in the UAE and not conducting any transactions, does such company still require to appoint an ASP for e-invoicings? I have touched based on this topic during our webinar. E-invoicing obligations applies to every persons who are in the scope of e-invoicing framework, where they are providing B2B supplies or B2G supplies transactions. So if a legal entity is not conducting any business transactions, they are ideally not required to be implemented e-invoicing. However, their purchase transactions need has to be received through this e-invoicing platform. So if from that perspective, you still have to appoint an ASP to receive your purchase invoices. Okay, so in short, the takeaway is any businesses interacting with other businesses and if supplying to other businesses, issuing a B2B supplies invoice, recording as a revenue in your books, they have to go mandatorily by invoicing. Plus, if you wanted to receive your tax invoice or electronic tax invoice from your suppliers, you have to receive an electronic invoice to claim your input tax. So that means many businesses or almost every businesses will follow e-invoicing framework. And one more thing, yes, so I'll cover that questions in the coming slides. Do free zone companies like JobSat, GMCC, or DIFC companies required to implement e-invoicing? So as I said, e-invoicing framework is applicable for B2B and B2G transactions. Doesn't matter whether your locations, where you're located in UAE. It is maybe there are VAT rules applicable if you are in designated free zones with respect to supply of goods. But for e-invoicing purpose, the designation or your company locations doesn't matter. As long as you are making a B2B supplies or B2G supplies, e-invoicing comes into picture and you have to appoint an ASP within the stipulated timeline. Okay, so I hope this is clarified. Does a business need to be VAT registered in order to fall within the scope of e-invoicing mandate? This answer is also evident. You don't need to be a VAT registered person. VAT is applicable when you need to meet certain threshold and you become a VAT registered person. After meeting that threshold, you apply for registrations, then you will get a TRN number. But e-invoicing is still applicable even if you are selling your products or services to any